technique was to get on and off as quickly as I could. To spend too much time there, it's devastating. Absolutely devastating.
So that's where they sleep, over here?
Yes, it's their den.
Let's then call your mom. They say you must not use the cameras.
You're not allowed to use the cameras?
Yeah.
One of the most popular cats at the moment. We can't keep up with all the orders.
We typically do a deal where it's, you know, you buy one male and you buy 2 females with it thrown in.
Do they hunt him as well?
For me, part of the story, part of the narrative is brutality. I was riding horses with a very well-known operator in the Delta, and we used to share that concession with hunting operators. And outside of the season, we would often hear shots going off, and we'd hear small aircraft landing. Those shots we were hearing in those light aircraft were hunters operating illegally outside of the season. And that's really what got me going. It was about the time of the Cook Report, which was the first real exposure South Africa and the world had of what was actually going on.
A canned hunt is where the target animal is unfairly prevented from escaping the hunter, either by physical constraints, such as fencing, or by mental constraints, such as being habituated to humans.
I was involved with the Cook Report, in the hunt that was featured on the Cook Report. And that was through sheer ignorance at the time, greed at the time, call it what you like. And the fallout from that was that myself and my family in particular have been branded with this tale of the Cook Report and canned lion hunting. It's not a pleasant thing to have gone through. At the time, it was condemned by the entire industry, by the entire world. And all of a sudden, it's quite fine to do it now.
Hello?
Hi, I'm calling from the United States. And I'd like to see about doing one of your lion hunts. Can you talk to me?
Yes, I can. What did you say was your name?
My name is Rick.
The hunting that I've done has been primarily to put food on the table. You get your deer tag at the start of the season, and you do a proper hunt. I got the opportunity to see a clip on canned hunting.
Blasting away, blasting away.
What disturbed me the most was the baiting of the animal. And just as he was about to take a bite, the shots start going off. And it's not just one shot.
Whoa, that's enough. 6 shots. 6 shots.
I think that's what propelled me into this and made me want to find out for myself.
About 5-6 years ago, the South African government did try and do something about the predator breeding and can hunting industry. And the government won the first round of cases, and that was well publicized, but they lost the appeal, and that wasn't well publicized. And so we have this perception amongst many people in South Africa that can hunting has been done away with.
The fact that the Predator Breeders Association won the case is undoubtedly being used by them to say that what they're doing is legitimate. It's not unlawful. The canned hunting situation really falls through the cracks in our legislation.
The disheartening point now is that, of course, government have done nothing since that court case was thrown out. And so today, 4 or 5 years since then, we've actually probably had a doubling in the size of the industry.
See what this one says. Well, I went online and took a look at a number of different websites. If you've got the money, you know, there's people here who will take it.
I've got like a, you know, a limited amount of time that I'm gonna have free.
3 days, 2 nights will be fine will be enough for the lion hunt.
Okay.
Yeah, they came back with 14 animals. Pictures of 14 animals. 13 of them were males, and 1 was a female. About $16,000 for a young blonde mane male, on up to $48,000 US for one of the big black mane males.
They are numbered from 1 to 14. So you will see the darker and the more the manes are, the expensive they get.
Okay. Click. I want that one. Type off an email. Let me have that one.
It's very difficult to get information on these industries. So it's one thing to hear the stories or to suspect, but it's another to actually go in and see it yourself and to film it yourself. So that's what I did. We're now on the property of Lions Rock, which is the only true wildlife sanctuary in the Free State province. 12, 14 years ago, this place was actually one of the worst of the predator breeding operations. And it was one of the first places that I came to and was able to draw the link between the breeding that was going on and canned hunting. We did a sting on the internet. They sold us a whole lot of animals, including a big male white lion for, back then, $130,000. And I was able to match the image they'd sent us and the picture that I took right here. They were selling this facility as an educational center and as a sanctuary. But I'd been tipped off that, in fact, it was a canned hunting operation. And what I had to do is try and find where the actual breeding center was. And I managed to get some information from one of the staff on the farm. And I just asked him, where would I find the breeding lions? And he said to me, take that road, which says strictly forbidden. That's where the farmer's house is. That's where all the lions are.
Done some research on regular lion hunts, and they may take 2-3 weeks before they even get a shot off. Whereas what I'm doing is I get there on Monday, Tuesday I tour the place, Wednesday I get my lion. It's like, bring them in, shoot them down, ship them off.
Is the industry still growing?
It's definitely still growing, yeah. Remember, most of these predators are going into the hunting market. I mean, I can prove it with the amount of permits that are being issued at the moment. So, yeah, it's a big industry. It's a massive industry.
If you want to start a captive breeding facility for lion or for predators, all you need is the money to buy the land to put up the fences and to apply for your permit. There are no requirements in terms of having any knowledge of animal husbandry, animal care, or any basic understanding of what lion behavior, lion biology is. Unfortunately for lion, they breed relatively easily in captivity, and this has allowed the canned hunting industry to grow. They now need a ready supply of animals, animals that are relatively tame and can be managed, and that can be profitable, so they need to be done in a very intensive situation. So groups of animals like this will be put into very, very small breeding camps, and literally it just becomes a battery farming situation. The cubs are then pulled from the mother at anything between 3 and 10 days, and that is to bring her into oestrus again so that she's able to breed very, very quickly, a second and a third time. So she's breeding many, many more times in her life cycle that she would be doing in the wild. You're actually wearing her out, you're exhausting her. And there's also, it shows that the cubs bred under those intensive situations are becoming progressively weaker. They're not looking to have genetically healthy animals. They're looking to have as many animals as they can to pump into the industry.
It's not illegal, unfortunately. It's very unethical and completely against the animal's welfare, but it's not illegal. And the lion farmers know that. So they generally do as little as humanly possible for these animals.
Breeding wild animals is no sin. It is an international accepted norm. They do that with buffalo and with roans and with sables and with crocodiles, but no one complains about that. They complain about lions because the lion as a species has this special position in the mind of people. He is the king of the animal kingdom, and he is the icon of wildlife. But that's only a perception in people's minds.
A lot of my work has been based on informants. And about 5-6 years ago, I got a call from a policeman, someone who works within the Wildlife Crimes Division, and he told me about the lion bone trade. The whole lion bone trade is based on age-old concepts of traditional Chinese medicine. They had a whole section dedicated to what they call tiger bone wine. And really what that meant was taking a tiger carcass, submersing it in a liquid, and that fermented, and the potion that came off that was then sold as a medicine. The Chinese banned the trade in tiger pots back in the early 1990s. And so there has been a scarcity of bones of tigers to go into these vats.
The past 2 years, the lion bone industry has boomed. People have even started digging up lion bones of lions that were hunted, let's say, 20 years ago. We're on a weekly basis issuing CITES export permits for between 70 and 150 carcasses that actually leave the country.
We're aware of the lion bone trade and the extent of it. At the moment, the department regards it as a sustainable activity. The bones are obtained as a byproduct from the lion hunting industry.
When you're doing canned hunting and you're captive breeding predators for that, the animals have to be in at least a certain reasonable condition in order to be acceptable to the hunter. So there has to be a certain level of welfare for that animal to look okay. When it comes to breeding for lion bone, it actually doesn't matter what the lion looks like. So the welfare standards around that are even worse.
Are you or your department aware of how many lions are being kept right now on farms across South Africa?
There's approximately 6,000 lions now in about 200 facilities in South Africa. The department's aware of certain segments in the international community that is opposed to certain activities involving captive bred lions. I do not think that the concerns relating to malpractices in the industry should overshadow the conservation success that South Africa has had, especially in terms of lions.
So, I mean, in short, intensive breeding of lions is acceptable?
It is a regulated activity, so yes, it is something that will be authorized, provided that certain conditions are met.
The Department of Environmental Affairs can only legislate based on biodiversity threats. So, for example, if captive breeding of lions was leading to the extinction of wild lions, then they could change the laws. But because captive breeding of lions is causing animal cruelty, they can't do anything because it's welfare-based, and welfare falls to Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. So it's this absolute mess.
You have a national department that forms policy but cannot tell the provinces what to do. Passing the buck is exactly what applies to the legislation in this country.
In my ideal world, there would be no need for lion sanctuaries because there would be no abused lions in captivity. The huge difference between a bona fide sanctuary, which we are, and the majority of captive lion facilities in South Africa is that we have a strict no breeding policy, and then we also offer a lifetime home. We have a country where a large majority of people profess to be animal lovers, and yet seem to be oblivious or uncaring to the fact that every single day in South Africa, at least 2 to 3 captive-bred, hand-reared, tame lions are being slaughtered in canned hunts.
So this is a female lion then, yeah?
This is the female.
Yeah.
When I visited the taxidermy place prior to getting up to where I was to do my hunt, that place was incredible. I mean, they must have had the skins of over 1,500 animals.
It's a half mount, so the client hasn't got space for it, so it's being hung on the wall, jumping out as if it's about to attack.
There were so many animals. It was amazing to see. You know, a little bit disturbing.
Mr. Baboon over there, he's got his hands out. He's going to have a wooden tray on it for business cards.
The lions that I saw in that taxidermy place, they weren't scarred. A lot of times when you watch the videos, the males are just like all gnarly looking. You know, they've got scars on their nose because they've been fighting over either females or they've been fighting to take over a territory. They've got scars on them. These animals are pretty, like they were done up nice. They didn't have any bush history.
Morning. It's Saturday the 7th. I'm starting to record myself every day because I've got no idea how long I'm going to be here. I want to call this one named Boo. She's like little angels. You know? So...
Up to date, I've worked at 2 of these places, and the first time I've got introduced with these breeding farms, I thought that it was all for conservation and very ethical.
For 30 days, you pay me, it was $2,800 US.
They would house up to 35 volunteers at the stage, and there's not a lot of work for all of these volunteers. When these overseas volunteers come there, what I've noticed is they're very blind to the fact of what is really going on, of what I've picked up working at one of these places for a year.
Well, at first I thought it was amazing, you know, how
we could get interaction with them.
So weird.
But the more I got into this, I just see and notice that there's something that's not right about this place.
And when do you take them away from their mothers?
We usually do it at about 2 weeks, but these guys were an exception. We took them off for 3 days.
The cubs are then taken away, and that produces another whole industry in itself, in that you then have these orphaned cubs that are put out on adoption, that become part of these intensive volunteer programs, and young, keen volunteers come in and believe that they are rearing an orphan lion cub and that they are contributing to conservation, when in fact in many sad cases all they're doing is rearing a cub that when the right age and no longer good for photographs and to pay and play, then gets put into a hunting situation.
Those poor volunteers think they're really doing something for conservation. In the meantime, they're just looking after the predator owners' animals and hand-rearing them and giving them milk, and they sleep with them and that type of stuff. I mean, that's not conservation.
How many volunteers?
We have about 25 on this.
25 volunteers, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they usually adopt a cub, then they pay an amount of money in each year for the food and the vegetables and all that. We keep them updated how the cub is doing, sending pictures and all of that. And then usually they come back the next year and walk with their lion.
So you all volunteer?
Yeah, Norway.
Norway? All from Norway,
And you?
okay.
Norway.
All Norway.
All Norway.
And how long have you come for?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And then we paid 12,000, I think, Norwegian crowns.
Well, that's mainly what Ukutula is all about. It's about our research. We are working hand in hand with many universities also around the world. South Africa, we've got Onderstepoort, we've got Germany.
Sometimes we put them in their own enclosures, sometimes we sell them to other breeding centers and predator parks all over the world.
But why have you got so many?
It's just for the research. We're not breeding lions for tourists. It's just for research.
The most common question asked by people on arrival here is if they're lion cubs that they can pet. Of course, they get our standard response of no and an explanation as to why we don't have lion cubs. It's actually quite shocking how many people then leave because they're after that quick fix.
Well, really, we're at the forefront of the whole effort for lion conservation. A lot of people talk about conservation, but hunters are the real conservationists. The most effort, the most money, the people that are actually in the field. That's what Safari Club does. Safari Club brings all those people together, gives them goals, gives them commonality, gives them something to work towards.
So Safari Club International is the largest, certainly American hunting organization. Some people even refer to it as the largest global hunting organization. Literally, the A to Z of trophy hunting is on display at those conventions.
I think South Africa is most probably one of the only places in the world where we breed lions commercially. And we breed them for hunting. And there's a lot of controversy about this issue. People that are non-hunters believe that hunters like us hunting these lions drive them into extinction. But we're actually not. Because we breed them commercially, we grow those numbers.
Well, commercially bred lions contribute to conservation because they take the pressure off of wild lion herds in the ever-decreasing, habitat that they have. And it also encourages the ranch owners to actually breed the lions, because the economics of the situation are, if an animal doesn't have an economic value, the rancher's not going to grow it. The lion was raised, and other lions will be raised for future hunters. This is conservation, because if it wasn't for the hunter, that lion wouldn't be there. He never would have been bred. He never would have been born.
But the lion will inevitably die anyway because it's being hunted.
Mm-hmm. But at least has a purpose in life.
Hi there. My name's Rick.
Rick, welcome
nice to meet you.
Welcome you guys.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm going to show you guys your rooms.
All right.
And we can have something to drink.
So you got folks from all over the world then, I take it, huh? Yeah.
American, European, Czechoslovakia, Russian guys. In about 2 days, we've done 23 plains game and 2 lions.
Wow.
So we were quite good. Yeah, welcome.
Thank
guys.
you.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Hi guys, it's 5:20 in the morning. Heard the lions roaring off in the distance. Have that butterfly thing happening. But each time I have to get myself settled back down and, focus on what I gotta do here.
How's it? My name is Rick. Nice to meet you.
We're about ready to head off and do some target practice and see how well I shoot.
Why do you guys have the donkeys?
Lion takeaway.
Lion takeaway. The professional hunter was describing some of his former clients. They had folks who couldn't even hit that target. It was only 50 meters. They couldn't even hit the broadside of a barn. You've got no business being here unless you can handle the weapon properly. All right. Do you guys feel comfortable with this?
Yes. I just want to go back to the lodge and show you on the lion. On that lion?
Oh, yeah.
Where the shot placement, where's the best shot placement.
All right.
The nice thing about the ranch lions is they tend to be prettier. They have bigger manes because they've been bred for that. The ranches don't have the thick brush, so the wild lions actually live in the brush, and by walking through the brush all the time, it actually rips out their manes. So most wild lions don't have a big, full black mane, for example.
I want to select my animal. I'm able to say that I want a lion with a dark mane. It needs to have some character. If I'm a keen trophy hunter and I want to have these on my wall and tell a story about them, I want to be able to select them well. The way we do it, we've got a 8,000 or 10,000 acre range. We release that lion, or we've got lions that's already released. That's high fenced lion hunting. That's not canned hunting.
In the interview with the Professional Hunters Association, they spoke very clearly about we are against canned hunting. So you ask them, well, what is canned hunting? They play with these nuances in the word. So they're against canned hunting, but they're now trying to get into bed with the breeders to cash in.
I think hunting has changed today because Everything's much faster. The world's a faster place. People don't have time. In a sense, the instant gratification has brought rise to things like the captive bred lion shooting, as we call it. Hunting's not a term I'd use there.
I've done a lot of wild lion hunting, but I do know people who've done captive bred lion hunting, and I think that there's an enormous difference.
The captive lion industry and the canned lion industry have actually created a completely new market. The hunter who will go to Tanzania and spend huge amounts of money on a 21-day hunt, knowing that he may not even get that lion, is a totally different market to the market that comes to South Africa, who pays the money for a guaranteed hunt, and he can get lion and whatever else he wants.
People don't want to go and hunt wild lions and prefer to do these captive bred lions because it's a guarantee. I mean, it's just a slam dunk deal. You're going to get one.
There's a number of professional hunters that feel like we do, who are absolutely disgusted in what's happening with it. And unfortunately, we're the minority. When you confront them, they all talk about how much money they're making and that these lions will one day be put back into the wilds, and you know it'll help the wild lions. We don't see that at all.
It is possible to reintroduce lions that were bred and raised in captivity into areas that lions became extinct. The captive lion population might become the savior of the African lion species.
Using captive bred lions as a source for repopulating or supplementing wild populations is it's a bad idea.
Any captive animal has absolutely no conservation value whatsoever, and that is particularly true of the captive South African lion population, which is so inbred and genetically tarnished that to reintroduce, even if it was feasible, those captive populations back into the wild would be disastrous.
I'm not aware of any captive lions that have made it successfully in the wild. It's been trialled numerous occasions, probably to the expense of millions of dollars, but it's not a viable conservation option.
All right, here we go. Let's go take a look. If you got a broadside shot, I want you to shoot a lion here.
In the shoulder.
In the shoulder.
The reason why they were saying shoot him in the shoulder was so that you would disable him, so that way he could not charge.
If you shoot a bad shot in this area, the lion, there's a possibility of more than one shot. And we want you to kill the lion with one shot. Always go down on your knees to get this.
They wanted you to feel
as the lion
that you were in the worst kind of danger, like you were going to die if you didn't shoot this animal.
Always expect the unexpected. If the lion charges, don't run, guys. Please don't run.
People stay close as possible.
Yeah, stay.
You will be always between me and
If a lion charges, keep on shooting. Even when
see the lion is laying down and the ears back and the tail is wagging,
then you must
this
know.
lion is angry.
Can I take a breath?
Yeah. No, just be prepared. It is a lion, and it's not tame lion.
I'm not big on doing partial solutions. And so the decision was made that we would do a ban of hunting on all concessions. When you look at the number of lions that Africa had and what we have today, it speaks for itself. The argument comes, we'll breed to keep hunting. Well, you know, if you want to go along those lines, you may as well adopt the attitude and say, you will never see lion other than a caged lion. And it's sustainable. Is that the right thing? I don't think so.
Tourists who come here to hunt
they are of great value to our tourism sector, as long as, as long as the hunting that they do doesn't negatively impact on the reputation of the rest of the sector. If trophy hunting can contribute positively to the conservation effort, it should be retained and it should be done in such a way that it is understood and appreciated by the public, including tourists who want to visit South Africa for the safari experience.
The tourism industry in South Africa is worth around about 95 billion a year. So it's a sizable industry and it's a big chunk of our total GDP. Of that, the hunting industry is about 1.5%. So it's a very, very small portion of the revenue. And then the canned lion hunting industry is a portion of that. 1 in 7 South Africans is directly dependent on the tourism industry to put food on their table. And my concern about the canned lion industry is that it potentially can damage brand South Africa in such a bad way. Why risk brand South Africa and its reputation and the livelihoods of 1 in 7 South Africans for the benefit of a few individuals?
I think it has already damaged brand South Africa. How significantly, I'm not really able to tell. But the practice of canned lion hunting or breeding in captivity comes with a lot of negativity, and therefore it does and probably will do further reputational damage unless we take some more decisive measures to discourage it.
You know, it's the right to life, and I will speak for those that don't have a voice. We need to be radical as far as protecting our wildlife species, our fauna and flora and the environment. We don't have second chances on any of those.
The bush is a bit difficult. We're going to shoot in a short distance. It will be in 50 to 30 yards.
50 meters.
Okay, so about what I just did.
Yeah, you won't shoot.
Maybe a little bit closer.
Yeah, you will shoot closer than what you've done now.
Wow.
I mean, right behind us.
Vraag. Ek vra as hierdie vir 'n TV-onderhoud of vir watter newspaper is dit? Of wat se kak is hy besig om te doen?
What are you really doing? What is this?
I'll kill you. Don't take a photo of me. I'll fucking kill you. I'll kill you. I'll tell you. I warned you. Don't take a photo of me. So you must write a note and sign that is not for a TV or for a newspaper or anything like that. Skryf. Skryf off.
What I didn't understand.
Uit by die hek. Or otherwise out. Do it
Sorry,
now.
what I didn't understand.
No. Shut your fucking back.
Sorry?
Shut. Bly stil.
I don't understand. What happened? Why are you...
Nothing happened is what will happen.
What do you mean what will happen?
Hoorie, skryf dit dan. Hierdie word nie gebruik vir enige uitsendings nie. Skryf of otherwise out.
This is not good.
All right, let me explain. Put it off, please.
Sorry?
Put it off.
Just turn it off.
Okay.
The people come from behind us, the greenies, and they come with all the bad publicity, and they come and send people to make photos. That's why.
I'm upset here, guys. You know, I'm not happy there. These are my friends.
All right, I understand, sir.
Are you not happy?
Huh?
Are you not happy? What do you say? Are you not happy?
Because you're treating.
Are you not happy?
You're treating my friends this way. I don't understand.
If you're not happy, tell me now. Then we're finished.
We're finished?
Yeah. Then you go out. If you're not happy, tell me now.
All right. Let's knock off. I think that's as far as I was willing to push this. We're on our way out, and the farther away we get, the better I feel. The folks who come here, knowing these animals are in an enclosure, knowing these animals have been hand-raised, and yet still pull that trigger, it's not a real hunt.
Right from the beginning, the idea was that he was never, ever going to shoot the lion. But we certainly needed to go through the process to find out what happens on these properties, what they're about. It's going to be a difficult battle to close captive breeding and can hunting. There's no doubt about that.
I don't know how, honestly, the South African government is going to be able to tackle this, but ultimately they are responsible because it's the lack of regulation in the early days or the lack of law preventing canned hunting from developing in the very early days that has allowed proliferation to the point where now we're not talking of a few hundred animals in captivity, which would be a huge challenge anyway. We're talking of 6,000 to 8,000 lions in captivity in these canned hunting facilities. What are you going to do? You're going to create sanctuaries. Are you going to then sterilize every last one of them? Personally, I think the whole lot should be euthanized. And however terrible that might sound, what is their value to us today, honestly?
You know, euthanasia is the quickest short-term solution. But if the government and the conservation authorities were really serious about closing down the captive breeding industry, then to institute a ban on captive breeding would see the natural death of breeding farms.
Our first step is to be in one mind as a country about whether we want this. Is this something that we feel proud of as a nation? My feeling is I'm not proud of it.
I think we have to regain the moral high ground on this. We have to recapture the term wise use and sustainable use, and we have to reinterpret it for the world that we wish to see rather than the world that we currently inhabit.
Well, we're at that tipping point. We had better decide what we want to do.
Up until a few years ago, we referred to lions as lions. This country, this industry, has ensured now that we have to differentiate. We have to talk about wild lions. 5, 6, 7 years ago, I mean, all lions were wild. What kind of a legacy is that?